Have you ever wondered why the people who think the most often feel the most alone? It's a strange irony, isn't it? You'd imagine that intelligence would bring connection, admiration, maybe even a sense of belonging, but instead, the opposite often happens. The deeper your thoughts go, the more distant you feel from the world around you. And no, it's not just in your head. Society doesn't fear ignorance, it fears awareness. From Confucius to Camus, from Hypatia to Heidegger, the minds who dared to think beyond convention have faced a quiet war, not of violence, but of indifference, of rejection, of isolation. But why? Why does deeper thinking isolate instead of unite? Why does society often sideline the very minds that could lead it forward? Let's look at the human mind, not just as a tool for thinking, but as a social compass. When you're in a room with someone stronger than you, you might feel inspired to improve. When you see someone more attractive, you might feel admiration or envy. But when you're around someone who thinks more deeply than you, someone whose ideas stretch the limits of your understanding, something very different happens. You don't just see them, you see yourself through their lens. And what you see may not always feel comfortable. This is what psychologists refer to as cognitive dissonance. When reality challenges your beliefs, your identity feels threatened. It's not the thinker that people fear, it's the mirror that thinker holds up. The human brain is wired for belonging, not truth. Evolution didn't shape our brains to pursue wisdom, it shaped them to survive. And in ancient tribes, survival meant belonging, harmony, agreement. Disagreeing with the group could mean exile, and exile meant death. That instinct hasn't left us. Today, when someone questions your beliefs, your brain still interprets it as danger. Not physical danger, but social, emotional, psychological. So when a deep thinker walks into a room asking uncomfortable questions or offering unfamiliar perspectives, they're not met with curiosity, they're met with silence, with deflection, or worse, with mockery, the charisma illusion. In our world, confidence is often mistaken for competence. The louder the voice, the more convincing the message. That's why society celebrates the charismatic speaker, the smooth-talking motivator, the flashy influencer. Not because they offer truth, but because they offer certainty, and certainty feels safe. But here's the catch. Deep thinkers rarely speak in absolutes. They speak in questions, in nuance, in possibilities. They don't provide fast answers, they provoke thought, and that doesn't make for the loneliness of seeing too much. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what if your why is to understand? What if your desire for truth is so intense that the surface-level pleasures of life no longer satisfy you? That's the burden of intelligence. It creates a kind of existential X-ray vision. You start to see through people's masks. You notice the emptiness behind social games. You question the rituals, the routines, the rules others follow blindly. And the more clearly you see, the harder it becomes to pretend you don't. This awareness can feel like a curse, because once you see deeply, you can't unsee. The world doesn't like disruptors. The world is built on systems, social, political, educational. Deep thinkers often question those systems. They don't just think outside the box. They ask who built the box and why we're sitting inside it. And when you question the foundations, you make people nervous. That's why visionaries are often dismissed before they're celebrated. Galileo was imprisoned. Socrates was executed. Tesla died in obscurity. Their mistake? Not that they were wrong, but that they were right before the world was ready. Social rejection is a survival reflex. A 2018 study from Yale University showed that when people feel intellectually inferior, the brain's insula, an area linked to pain, is activated. In other words, being outsmarted doesn't just hurt your ego, it actually hurts your brain. And so, instead of engaging with the deep thinker, the average mind withdraws. Not because it hates them, but because it fears the discomfort they bring. This is why intelligent people often connect better in private conversations than in groups. In small spaces, there's room for vulnerability. But in public, people defend their image, not their intellect. The dilemma of the deep thinker. So where does that leave those who crave truth more than comfort? Those who value meaning over small talk? Do they just stay quiet? Do they hide their thoughts? No, but they adapt. Schopenhauer, the philosopher of pessimism, offered a path. He didn't say, fit in. He said, accept the solitude. Use it, cultivate it. Let your loneliness become your laboratory, because solitude for the thinker is not an exile, it is freedom. A few quiet truths for deep thinkers. If you often feel out of place, if people dismiss your questions or change the subject when things get real, if you feel more alive in books than in boardrooms, that doesn't mean you're broken. It means your mind is tuned to a different frequency, one that not everyone hears. And yes, it can be isolating. But you're not alone in your loneliness. You share a quiet kinship with generations of thinkers, rebels, and seers who saw what others ignored. So what should you do? Don't silence your thoughts to fit in. Don't shrink your ideas to make them easier to digest. Don't pretend to be less than you are. Instead, seek out the few who speak your language, even if they're found in books. Speak your truth where it's welcomed, and walk your path with quiet conviction. Because in a world addicted to noise, the deepest truths are often spoken in silence. The deeper you think, the fewer will understand, but the ones who do are worth everything.